What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video, and for me, the most underrated team in Europe is Atletico Madrid because of how comfortable they are without possession of the ball and how dangerous they are in offensive transition, as well as adapting every year to become better tactically when they do have possession of the ball. So before we start, be sure to check out my book. There's a link in the description below. Check out Keyframe. That's how I made this video. And there's also a link to that in the description below, but let's get right into it. So Atletico Madrid, oftentimes they would build with 3 players in their first line of build-up, joined by 1 holding midfielder, and this is against an opponent that's playing a 5-3-2. But one important thing to know about the Atletico team and how they've changed over the years is now they've moved towards more of a diamond midfield shape, occupying all the advanced areas between the lines in the central corridors. So they have players in both half spaces and in the central corridor looking to play between defenders, as well as offering a third line pass. Then we have Suarez stretching the defenders, creating height within the structure, trying to create more space between the lines for the dangerous options. And then we have single width held by either wingbacks, fullbacks, or wide midfielders, but oftentimes the wide midfielders will tuck into the half spaces so they won't be occupying the wide area. So this very compact, tight structure allows them to attack very narrow and quick interplay to then progress up the field fast, and in the case of a loss of possession, they have numerical superiority in their first line, which allows freedom for their front players to go and counter press quickly to win back the ball. Moving further up the field, attacking against an opponent's low block, we see Atletico further overload the space between the lines with 4 attacking players into these areas. They are then covered by 3 central defenders in the first line of build-up, but they still have numerical superiority and the constant of the overload between the lines, creating height of Luis Suarez, looking to then create space for the players just on the same vertical line, but a little bit deeper for him. Always with the width occupied, almost always with the occupation of full width to get into crossing positions or have access for diagonal passes in behind the defense. Another common pattern from Atletico Madrid is their jumping of the wide central defenders. This is done in or out of possession of the ball. It puts their wide central defenders in closer proximity to the outlets of the opposing team, as well as the holding midfielder. They will join the same line as the holding midfielder, which gives them a shorter distance to then go and counter press. As well, this is very effective when they do look to play longer passes, especially longer diagonal passes to wide players running in behind, which is a common theme for them. And as we can see, just the preparation movement of this action from the forwards is to vacate the space where the ball will be played, allowing for a deep runner to then occupy the space, get into a crossing position. Also, with the jumping of the wide central defenders in possession of the ball, we'll still have 1 central defender as our free player to secure circulation, as well as offer cover when the team does counter press, but we have the jumping of the opponents, midfielders and forwards, which will then create more space in between the lines for Atletico Madrid to then access and play through. As we see here, 2 players on the opposing team jump to meet the holding midfielder and wide central defender, as well as the pinning from Atletico Madrid players and inverted runs creates more space between the lines to then go attack. But when they do go long, they usually stretch the height of the field in preparation for runs into the box, into dangerous areas, to then receive a cross. Another common theme for Atletico Madrid in possession is to attack very narrow and in tight connected spaces with rondo structures. So we see the 4-man structure here, going from the wide area, just entering the exterior part of the half space, and then they create a 4 versus 3 on this side of the field. And when this happens, they will very rarely circulate possession. They'll almost always attack through this very tight area with interconnected play going forward, always looking to get in behind and progress the attack, get into crossing or shooting positions. They're able to isolate this 4v3 because of the pinning highest players, the 2 highest players, as we see João Felix comes into the wide area, and now 2 players occupy forward positions pinning the rest of the defenders, as well as a central midfielder holding his position, which allows them to separate and disconnect the team defensively, allowing them to create these numerical superiorities. A key element of Atletico Madrid's tactics in possession of the ball is their ability to play direct, but also control the volatility what comes with this situation. So when they play direct, they often set up for second balls, which usually comes at a calculated distance around where the ball is expected to land. Now this gives them a high probability of winning the ball back, or having greater odds than just 50-50 to winning possession back and being able to progress the attack forward. Oftentimes the opponents go much too close to where the ball is going to land, which is highlighted, which allows Atletico Madrid to wrap their structure just around the opposing team's inefficient setup for their second ball. And this gives Atletico Madrid the opportunity to collect the second ball or go and press the players from their blind side. And this is all about creating positional advantages, using their cover shadows, and creating one-on-one positional superiorities against their opposing teams, as well as having threats in behind and cover underneath. Now for Atletico Madrid's setup out of possession. In this game, they went with a back five. Oftentimes, they switch from a back four to a back five, but they are very comfortable in each, and the concepts and their principles stay the same. Here, they have a high level of vertical and horizontal compactness. Their back five allows them to span across the full width of the field much easier than it would if they were to defend in a four-man back line. Also, their five-man defense allows them to create 3 versus 2 numerical superiority in their last line of defense. And to show the vertical compactness, we'll just draw some arrows here to show that there's no more than about 10 yards between their defensive and midfield line, making it very hard for the opponents to create meaningful connections between the lines and progress the attack further forward. Also, an interesting concept that Diego Simeone has implemented in all his teams is the interline relationship and how they jump and control space while using staggering, which we'll explore in the next picture here. So this is the picture I was talking about when we can look at the staggering principles of Atletico Madrid to increase their amount of spatial control between the lines. So their midfield is staggered with every other player, with players addressing the ball and jumping to create better access to players in deeper positions of their possession structure, but also they leave 2 players deeper, which allows them to control the space between the lines. And by positioning these 2 players each, and by positioning these players on different horizontal planes with 2 players deeper and 2 players higher, it gives them good cover of where their cover shadow can't reach, and they have horizontal mobility to then press players if a ball were to get through, but also allows players closer proximity to the ball in a deeper area and allows less time on the ball while still maintaining their defensive triangles to discourage diagonal passes between the lines from the opposing team. Now in the last picture here, we'll look at Atletico's full defensive structure in one picture. So we have their 5-man back line, their 4-man midfield, and their 1 player holding their height and offering an outlet in possession of the ball. So now here we see aspects of spatial orientation, controlling the players between the lines from the other team. And by controlling the central corridors using spatial orientation, it allows them to use cover shadows and discourages the team from playing between the lines, forcing them into wide areas, which is much easier for Atletico Madrid to then isolate possession and win the ball back. And then in the wide area, they can use quick interchange of play to then attack through the wide areas and progress very fast and very vertically, while still remaining more safe and going through the wide area than they would if they went through the central corridors. And that's the analysis, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.